Differential association theory, I should say at the beginning, is a theory of deviance that applies strictly to criminal behavior. Remember from earlier that when we talk about deviance, you need to be thinking about norms. Deviance is not all deviance is crime, I should say. Deviance is simply the violation of norms. When we talk about deviance, we're not necessarily talking about crime. Deviance can be dressing differently than everyone else in a certain setting dresses, or deviants can be talking much louder than everybody else, or having attitudes that are opposed from the common or um, customary attitude of the group. Differential association theory, however, is a theory of deviance that applies strictly to criminal behavior. My caption for this theory, as you see on top, is get in where you fit in. And I think that'll be clearer as I explain this. The key assumption underlying differential association theory is that criminal behavior is learned. Individuals do not come out of their mother's womb knowing how to commit crime. They don't know how to break into cars or commit credit card fraud or commit acts of tax evasion. These are things that these acts are things that people learn throughout their life. So differential association theory is mainly concerned with how people become socialized as criminals. You recall, hopefully, that to be socialized means to learn the ways of a culture. So when we say that when we talk about the ways people are becoming socialized as criminals, we're talking, therefore, about the ways that people are learning to commit criminal acts, learning how to conceal their acts, learning how to, not get caught in their criminal acts. So all individuals, regardless of where you're from, regardless of what religion you are, or what your racial or ethnic background is, all individuals have access to criminal and non-criminal subcultures. Everyone knows someone who, is doing something that is against the law. Some people might know a lot more people. Some people might know people who are engaged in much more serious or much more dangerous forms of law breaking. But everyone, has access to people who are socialized in criminal subcultures and socialized in non-criminal subcultures. The process of learning criminal behaviors, the process of becoming, socialized in that culture is known as cultural transmission. What matters toward whether or not someone becomes socialized into a criminal lifestyle and learns how to become a criminal, what really matters is not necessarily how much access one has to a criminal subculture, but the kind of access someone has. Let me give you an example here. Suppose that suppose that you have a I don't know, 15, 16-year-old male, and many of his family members, certainly his older male family members, are gang members. So this is, a young person who certainly has several access to this particular gang subculture. If his access is not necessarily good, if his access, whenever he's around his older brothers, his cousins, uncles, for instance, other people who are involved in this gang, they might not really accept him. There might be various reasons for that. Maybe they don't see this, young person as being cut from the same cloth, not really having the same upbringing or not really having the same values or identity that they do. Maybe they're trying to protect him. Maybe they're trying to send him the message that, what we do or this particular lifestyle is something, that is not for you. We don't want you to get involved in this. So for whatever reason, this, 15 or 16-year-old male, for whatever reason, his interactions, his experiences with these older males in his family who are members of a particular gang, his experiences with these people might not be that positive. They don't make him feel that good about himself. They don't really give him the impression that he belongs. Under differential association theory, this 15 or 16-year-old boy is going to look for other, more supportive, more identity affirming subcultures. When I say get in where you fit in, that basically means people are going to associate with the people who make them feel accepted, who make them feel welcome, or who make them feel good about themselves. I might, that 15, 16-year-old boy, yes, he has a lot of access to members of a certain street gang. But if those gang members don't accept him, or that they make jokes about him, or they don't really include him in their activities, if they don't make him feel good about himself, that young boy is probably going to be averse, or a little bit, a little bit circumspect, or a little bit, what's another word? Not quite enthusiastic about having the same identity that they do. Maybe he feels more supported by a certain peer group at school. Maybe there's a certain, activity or pastime that he has that he really likes, and he feels more socially supported among those people, like a certain musical group or a sports team, that he plays on. So differential association, means that people associate with different types of people. That's where the theory comes from. And we tend to associate with people who give us our greatest sense of support and comfort. So what matters in terms of which subcultures we are socialized into and which types of behaviors we learn the most about, what matters is not necessarily who we have access to, but the kind of access we have. This theory says that we are going to associate with the types of people who make us feel welcome and accepted and supported and comforted. So someone who feels the need, someone who feels the need to be protected, someone who feels the need to kind of assert his or her toughness, that might be someone who, that members of this street gang, appeal to. But someone who is looking for other things in life, no, that street gang is not going to have that same kind of appeal. So differential association theory says that people are going to associate with the subcultures and the groups that make them feel comforted and supported. Now, this is when we talk about the feminist perspective on crime. This is not a theory on crime. Feminists can have multiple different perspectives on crime, but I just want to make you aware of some things here. Feminism is rooted in understanding inequalities on the basis of gender. Inequalities between males and females. So when we apply the feminist perspective to crime, we have to we eventually see that many laws within our criminal justice system were designed with only men in mind, and it's taken some time, and we're not finished with it, but it's taken some time to achieve greater equality in the law. An example of this is what we call marital rape. Up until now, these laws vary by state, because state laws, all differ. We have 50 different states in America, but most states did not begin acknowledging marital rape as a crime until like the late 80s, early 1990s. And some states, waited longer than that. It was assumed that, if two people were married, then the consent for sex was implied, at marriage. It was not, the thinking was it was not possible for a man to rape his wife because they were married. Consent comes at marriage. We That's a very kind of antiquated, old-fashioned, chauvinistic, you might say, view of rape. Husbands can indeed rape their wives, have sex against their will, even though they're married, and the law now um, can convict people of rape within a marriage. Um, Other examples how feminists will look at crime, under concerns there. Um, Historically and to this day, men have been arrested for crimes and convicted and incarcerated. Incarcerated means to go to be sent to prison. Men have been arrested and convicted and incarcerated at much greater rates than females have. This is starting to change. There's different reasons for this. For one, gender roles in society are starting to change. Many women are the single income provider within their families. So there's more responsibilities on women to provide for the members of their household. As a result of that, many will turn to crimes to help them generate income. Also, fighting among females and any type of physical assault has become more socially accepted. I'm not saying it's applauded or, within certain social circles, of course, within certain settings, it's still looked down on, strongly. But even in your experiences in school, you've probably seen females get into fights, females fighting, females using physical contacts or engaging in assault more common than in the past. Feminists will look another concern when it comes to crime anyway is rape culture and sexual harassment in the workplace. Rape culture refers to really a subculture wherein rape is not only common but maybe even applauded. Um, think about like fraternities. Many fraternities, in colleges and universities, many fraternities socialize their pledges. The people joining the fraternity to be sexually aggressive toward women. Fraternity houses have been kind of a ground zero, so to speak, or a breeding ground for rape. Many rapes are known to occur within these fraternity houses. So when we talk about rape culture, we're talking about a culture where rape is not only prevalent, but the behaviors that lead to rape. Maybe getting a woman drunk or being very aggressive with a woman sexually. These types of behaviors are applauded within that particular subculture. Sexual harassment in the workplace, making unwelcomed advances toward women in certain workplaces that might be seen as the norm. So feminists will be on guard, certainly raising awareness and trying to pass laws and measures to curb that or cut down on that. Another concern of feminists when it comes to crime is what we call hegemonic masculinity. We're going to talk about this later in the course, but hegemonic masculinity, again, this goes back to socialization. It's the way that men or the way that boys kind of learn to be men, what they grow up thinking being a man entails. Hegemonic masculinity refers to this vision of masculinity that men are supposed to be aggressive, very powerful, sexually vigilant, promiscuous. And again, we'll see this when we talk about gender, but feminists will caution against the effects of hegemonic masculinity, saying that many boys are socialized into believing that the way to solve conflicts is to fight or to not take women's not take women's feelings or concerns very seriously. We also call this toxic masculinity, and as we'll see when we talk about gender, this has a criminogenic effect. This way of raising boys leads them into dangerous behaviors. So feminists are of course concerned about that and all its negative consequences.